Deliverables with SEO is hard because a lot of times it's content, they can see it, touch it, and feel it. A business owner can. Like okay, here's a new page on the site. But when you start talking about technical updates or page speed improvements, it's just this kind of, they glaze over. And okay, what did you do exactly? They just can't do it. Severe time limitation. There's only so many hours in the day. You can't develop content, develop creatives, build a website if it comes up, run PPC, keep tabs on SEO and client comms, and you can't do it all. Yes, and of course, Google keeps us on our toes because, some campaigns, you turn them on and the next day it's like, boom, leads. I wish it were like that every time, but it's not.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, Harry, for joining me today. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you. So today we're going to start with something fun, something funky fresh to not have your marketing brain too overloaded immediately getting into this. I'll do the hard-hitting stuff for later. So what we're going to do today is this segment is called Hot Takes and Unpopular Opinions. So I want you to share a bold opinion that you have that maybe you think a lot of people would disagree with, or you brought up before and have had some arguments against, and then just defend it in less than a minute. Does that sound good?
Sounds awesome. Love it.
Awesome. All right. Ready? Time starts now.
There is no such thing as advanced SEO.
Defend
All
it.
right. So
Ready.
in like 2008, I wrote a blog on like a free WordPress thing way back then called There's No Such Thing as Advanced SEO. I actually got called into HR for it. Yeah. So they sat me down, they were like, we sell SEO. What are you doing? And I was like, look, at the time I was going around I was like in 2 cities a week teaching businesses how to do SEO. And that was my gig. And I was like, look, if you write good content and it's high quality and you know what you're talking about and it's about a thing, a specific thing, it's not this ephemeral, notion, it's going to rank. And remember, this is going back almost 20 years. So, that's still true. It's still true. If you have good, high quality content, that's authoritative, you know what you're talking about, it's thorough and, it's genuine, it's going to do fine over time. And yeah, you can get into, structured data and you can get into page speed improvements and compression and minification, all the stuff that business owners don't know how to do. And really, when it comes down to it, if your site is a good site and it's authoritative and you know what you're talking about and it helps people, it's going to do fine. How's that for 1 minute?
I think you did great. And I think that was a great argument, to be honest. I don't know if you are updated on the whole HubSpot drama, so to speak, but a lot of people think that their domain authority went down, and their their links and everything, they're not ranking as high as they always were, which was like they were the textbook everyone was looking at them for. And a lot of people think it's because they were link building, but they weren't putting quality content. So they were just kind of doing it as much as possible because that was kind of the format that seemed to work for so long. But I think what you're saying, even though you said it was 20 years ago when this notion came about, I think that this is even more true now because of how Google changes constantly. I think that specifically now with AI and everything integrated into Google search, I think that this is even more true now of that there are certain things that we don't focus on anymore.
Yeah. And that's, in a perfect world, there are like, 3 legs to the stool, there, and if you kick one out, the stool's going to fall over. You can get away with it for a bit, focusing on just great content. You can focus on it for a bit. Okay, all we're going to do is try to build links for the next year. And you can focus on it. My site loads fast. That's all we focus on. But when push comes to shove, you kind of need the technical, the content, and the off page all to work together to keep things moving forward for a real amount of time, to have something that's strong and has some longevity behind it. That said, you can write 2 blog posts a week and see your organic traffic kind of trend up over time. until the next, update. And then it's like, oh, what? It's because
I
you neglected other stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that you need to account for everything and not just focus on one strategy that's very um I guess not accounting for you're putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You know
it
what's
doesn't
funny
make sense.
is I actually heard on one of the previous episodes, and now I can't remember who said it. I wish I can go back and find it. But
I might be able to remember. I'm
yeah, they
horrible with names.
oh, you know who it was? It was the agency.
Eh,
And
Tag, they're lovely.
yeah, he made this really good point, and it was, if you have if you don't know what marketing channel to pursue and you go to an SEO guy, they're going to tell you, well, you need SEO. And if you don't know what you to do for marketing and go to a branding guy, they're going to say, well, your branding is a mess. And I think that was really poignant, because it it just hammers home the point that you need objective, good advice from marketing people who can guide you down the right channels. And the same thing holds true at a micro level. If you're looking at SEO, you don't want somebody to just say content, content, content. And you don't want somebody to say content is dead. You have to do this. And so you need somebody that's going to look at things, you know, kind of holistically, even
Mm.
within the realm of one channel like SEO.
Yeah, exactly. They need to be I guess more realistic rather than just looking for a problem maybe
Right.
based off of their industry because I think that
Yes.
that's when you actually have true transparency, I think, when
Yeah.
you're going to an agency. Like
Agreed.
the good ones are telling you realistically that maybe you just don't need help.
Right. Yeah.
or maybe you really need help in this, but it's not what we do, or whatever
Yep.
it may be.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, I think that this was a great start to the podcast. I just wanted to introduce you officially and let everyone get to know who you are. So, for everyone that doesn't know that's watching, this is the Fully Managed Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's Partnership Coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Harry Brooks. Thank you again for joining me today. I think we've had a great start to our conversation. I'm very excited to get into it.
Yeah. My pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Could you start by telling us a little bit more about yourself? Anything that you think would be relevant up until this point in your business journey and what you're doing right now?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. So I launched my first PPC campaign in 2002. I'm getting long in the tooth. And back then I was working in an unrelated industry, like offsite data protection.
Mhm.
And I was an armchair affiliate guy. And this is back in the day of nickel clicks. And what's funny is I was dating someone who ultimately became my wife, but she was an esthetician. So I learned everything I could learn about skincare and became a really good skin store affiliate.
I mean,
And
your skin looks great, so you
well,
put it
well,
works.
yeah, you haven't seen it up close, but from the 80s. Um, so back then you could have a paid ad and send it directly to an advertiser's website, and if somebody bought, you got the affiliate commission. You didn't have to send it to your own website.
Mhm.
That didn't start until like 2005 or 6. And so anyway, I was kind of an armchair affiliate guy for a few years, and it was great. So I kind of learned Google Ads, AdWords at the time, kind of in the trenches, in the dark underbelly of the affiliate world. And I got picked up by Network Solutions. And back at the time in the mid 2000s, early, the mid aughts, um, they were the main game in town for domains, and they had a huge affiliate business. So I went on there actually to manage their affiliate program, and did that for a year, and then kind of fell into this. They were selling SEO, but with outside sales reps, like high priced SEO services. And so they developed this idea, this sales operation where you had a huge list, 30, 40, 50,000 people in a market, and you email them and invite them to a seminar and teach them SEO. So my job, they looked around and went, who knows how to do SEO? Brooks, he knows how to do it. He's been doing it at home, that kind of thing. And so we started this seminar program where we just went from city to city to city all across the US, getting from 40 to 500 small businesses in a room. You spend 8 hours teaching them SEO. And then at the end of the day, some number of them went, yeah, that's great. No way I'm doing this. And so in come our biz dev reps to sell them on an SEO page. So I did that until 2009, and it was awesome traveling and teaching and meeting all those small businesses. And when they disbanded that outside sales organization, my job became defunct, and I didn't miss a day of work. I'd been talking to small businesses and moonlighting, of course. And so I didn't miss a day of work. That the day that that job ended, I created my first agency. It was Search First Internet Marketing, and launched it, and immediately had, half a dozen clients on retainers. And it was just, okay, now I'm an agency owner. um, 3 years later, a guy from college tried to hire me to run to work in his agency, which was much bigger than mine.
Mhm.
And we quickly realized that it was silly for me to contract for him. I took my dozen clients or so and used them as an equity buy-in into his agency, and we
Mhm.
became business partners in 2012, and we're still together. So that agency in 2012 is Convergent Pipeline. So I currently sit as the chief marketing officer for Convergent Pipeline. It is a full service digital marketing agency, um, offering everything that you would expect, from SEO to paid ads to design and development and so forth. Well, what's interesting is that a few years ago, I guess it was 4 or 5 years ago, we looked up. Now our agency had been around for a decade more, and we realized like a huge chunk of our revenue was other agencies, and it just kind of happened. It wasn't on purpose; it just happened.
Mhm.
And so even a couple of years ago, if you'd gone to convergentpipeline.com, you would have seen white label digital marketing solutions. Well, that became kind of problematic because our retail client base, which was the majority, didn't know what white label was. And our other agency partners were like, well, wait a second. If you're a retail agency, are you competing with us? Well,
No,
exactly what's the deal here? So we were looking for a way to split that business from retail digital marketing services versus white label digital marketing services. And we found, negotiated, and bought white label agency. We just bought the whole dang thing. So
awesome.
it worked really well. It was a really fun experience. This white label agency had been being run out of an office in Toronto by a very sharp group of guys who had this agency, and it was very similar to us. It was an offshoot of their main. They were a Webflow development shop, and they didn't want this agent. They had it, and it was running great, but they didn't want it. They wanted to be a Webflow shop. So, so we decided that that was the perfect catalyst to be able to split our business units into two different distinct brands that made sense. So I guess last year, we had finished our integration, and white label agency, we were able to buy their agency partners, match them up with our agency partners. I have a dev crew that's been with me for almost 20 years. So I wanted to get my people doing the dev work and my processes for SEO and for PPC. And so we finished all that integration, and now we have two distinct businesses. So um, yeah, a lot of what I do is spent on white label agency, talking to other agencies. And we have two other business partners. So owners look at me like I'm crazy when I tell them there are three owners. It works. It just works. We have one who's a creative and, like, kind of, hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And then we
Yeah.
have, yeah, we've got another one who's like, keep everything just in perfect order. And I sit in the middle. So a managing partner for white label agency, and chief marketing officer for Conversion Pipeline. And one side is retail, one side is talking to other agencies. So wearing a bunch of different hats, but thoroughly immersed in the digital agency world. That was
That
a
is
very long.
no. I'm happy for the whole comprehensive story because I think that that's very interesting. It's really cool to have the foresight of realizing that your agency is confusing because I do think that that happens sometimes with a lot of people where you if you're doing too many things or maybe you have a certain clientele and then they kind of conflict where you
Yes.
are doing the white labeling and people were confused about, or you're doing the retail and the people were confused about which one you specialized in and were best at. It makes sense to split it off, but I think a lot of people want to do so much at once and they're capable of it, but I think the confusion of clients comes at a detriment to them because they maybe it kind of takes away from like the trust aspect of like you're really good at this one thing. Um
Yes. You can't
People
be a
get
yes man.
confused. Yeah, people hate being confused, so it's really cool to have done what you did with this and split off because you can do this you're ultimately doing maybe the same thing, but it's less confusing for clients, which I think is an incredible transition because I don't think I see and talk to many agencies, and I know that a lot of people do a lot of things, and I think that this is very beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, especially because the client themselves has a very different incentive behind them. So the retail client, their incentive is to get more business and grow. Where the agency client, that yes, they want to grow, but that is a secondary or even tertiary goal. The main goal is they can't do the production work. They can't get it done. There's not enough time in the day, especially for smaller agencies, call it 1 to 6 people or something like that, where every single new ad client they get, even if it's just for Google ads or, a single local SEO client, somebody has to pull those levers. Somebody has to do the actual production work and execute on the deliverables. So retail clients are looking for new business. Agencies most of the time are looking for, I need more time. I need somebody to do this, or I don't know how to do this.
Mhm.
Like I can add a title tag, sure, but what do you mean structured data? What am I supposed to do? So, so it's just there are different incentives for the different markets that you serve. So it really does make sense to have to go after them in different ways and talk to them in different ways too.
Yeah, of course. I think that that is it's good to recognize that that is something that would work better for you because I think and for your clients because I think that kind of stretching yourself too thin in the confusion can kind of I think that it it's necessary to be clear to clients. And I think that the more confusion that happens, the harder it is to work with them and then to be clear about what you're doing for them.
Oh yeah, yeah. Clarity, especially around SEO, is tough because
They don't understand.
they don't understand it, or they understand the end result, but they don't understand the deliverables. And deliverables with SEO is hard because a lot of times it's content, yeah, they can see it, touch it, and feel it. A business owner can. Like okay, here's a new page on the site. But when you start talking about technical updates or page speed improvements, it's just this kind of they glaze over and they don't, okay, what did you do exactly? And so that can be tough. And being able to articulate what you're doing and why you're doing it, and what the goal is of a particular step is super important when you
Mm,
get into those types of services, because you can't see it. Can't see, like with a paid ads program, you can see, impressions, clicks, conversions. It's easy to grasp and you can put a dollar value on it. SEO is a little bit of a different creature, so it may be tough in some circumstances if you're not clear.
yeah, it's a talent, I think, to be able to explain something simply, especially if you're so immersed in that world, especially
Yes.
for a client that doesn't completely understand SEO or the terminology that goes around it or the steps going on. I think that to be able to explain it simply that to them is really of value because people can be happy with an end result, but if they don't understand the process, they might not necessarily trust that you were working the whole time, which
Yeah.
sounds like
Yeah.
it sounds bad because obviously they should trust you to even come to you for a service, but I think that, um, SEO a lot of times takes more time than people expect, especially people who
Yeah.
don't understand it, and so to be as clear as you can about the process and explain it to them in terms that they would understand is
Yep.
so important and vital to them being completely happy at the end, not only with the end result, but knowing that the process was seamless or maybe not
Yes.
seamless.
Yes. You know what? Literally 2.5 hours ago, 10 o'clock, I was in a meeting with an agency owner, and he was talking to a prospect that has 4 local businesses in an area. And so we're going to launch into, he's going to position in place local SEO services. And this is an agency owner. And his question to me was, how long is it going to take?
Don't always know
And,
that.
and he said, he's going to ask me that. What should I tell him? And I said, look at him right in the eye and say, you have no idea how long it's going to take and for what. And then I backtracked and said, okay, don't be so flippant, but you have to be able to explain that. We really don't have any idea. And I think the best way to frame that for an end client or an agency is to say, look, one, we've been doing this for a long time. We have a lot of expertise. We're going to follow best practices. So we're going to do the things we know we're supposed to be doing. We're going to do them in a timeline we know we should be doing them. And what we expect is to see over time positive trends.
Mhm.
And that might be positive trends in organic search traffic or positive trends in number of conversions or inbound leads. But there are going to be times where it ebbs and flows. And sometimes it's kind of counterintuitive. We see you do a great job on page optimizations and you see traffic go down and conversions go up.
Mhm.
And being able to look at that and explain to the client, well, you were showing up in search queries that were really not tied to what you do exactly. And now you're showing up for search queries that are very closely tied to what you do. So you're getting less traffic, but who are coming to your site are much more valuable. And
Mhm.
having, looking at the data and being able to interpret that and sharing it with a client in a way that they're going to understand and not gloss over is huge.
Yeah, 100%. It is a difficulty because you do have to educate a client to a certain extent, which a lot of people I think don't realize that is so important to the process. And I think that it sucks because sometimes you're not necessarily paid for the educational aspect of
Yeah.
it. But it's also really important for you to have uh a better relationship with your client, for them to realize that like it might not look good sometimes, but it's not necessarily at the fault of you. It's just that sometimes things go up and down or they look bad, but they're not actually bad.
Right.
Whereas and I think that it's hard to understand when you don't completely understand SEO as a whole.
Yep. Totally agree. And, getting into, being able to clearly explain what they're seeing in analytics, I think is where that really comes to shine a lot is, marrying up what you see in Search Console with what you see in analytics and being able to filter out junk and noise and analytics and show them the meaningful things. That's, I think, a very big deal. And being able to distill reporting and all those numbers for maybe somebody who maybe they're in home services and they spend their time talking about, roof installs, you know, they're not going to care about a lot of these little tiny granular data points. They want to know, what are you taking away from it? But more importantly, they're going to want to trust that what your takeaway is accurate.
Mhm.
So the job for us is to be able to get our agency partners comfortable with those conversations if they're not already. And on the retail side, being able to talk directly to the clients. So yeah, know your audience for sure.
100%. You definitely need to consider that. So segueing because out of curiosity, wondering what does the process look like for like picking your agency partners for the white label agency? Like what
Yeah.
is it is it based off of need? Like, oh, this is an industry that we haven't tapped into or we think this would be helpful, or is it based off of like credibility? I'm sure obviously there's a level of that no matter what, but I'm curious about what it looks like when you're like kind of scouting or they're coming
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah. Um, we get most of the inbound agency inquiries we get coming through organic.
Mm,
We have a really strong web presence with white label agency, and we do have to separate. So the way we do it, you have to ultimately talk to people. Um, People who are in digital marketing are really good at standing up a website that can look like it's a big thriving agency when in all actuality it's a guy who just decided to launch it. And
mhm,
that's fine. That they sometimes make great partners. But you have to be able to feel out the degree to which they're really ready to start sending business. And because you don't want to waste anybody's time. So what we do is we set 30-minute meetings. Um, Once somebody makes an inquiry, you do the sniff test. If there's not a live website, or it's got to pass the basic sniff test. You book a 30-minute meeting, and during that, we ask them for their story. Like, how did you get here? What led you to seek out these services? That's my favorite question. And what's funny is that 8 out of 10 of them have a story that's super relatable. It's like, well, I was in the corporate world and I was a marketing manager, and then I decided
Yeah.
I can do this. So I started doing it at home, from my couch. And then I decided I'm really going to do it. And they got 4 retainers, so they quit. And I mean, I hear
8 out
that
of 10
story.
people that I talked to on this podcast has
Yes.
that story.
Yes, it's the same story.
Mm.
And it's kind of cool because we share that,
Yeah.
that was my story. It was, my 2 partners, they were, working at big carrier companies, think AOL and, companies like that, WorldCom, and, same story. Yeah, they had the same story, just separately. Um, but in that, we like to find out their story and what led them to seek out white label services. And then, usually by the end of 30 minutes, usually by the end of 3 or 4 minutes, we know if there's going to be a fit. And, some people aren't ready yet. Um, we are, we're, we're building very slowly in the background, something that looks more like an incubator program for people they're just starting. They don't know business processes. They don't know, scouting and, lead hunting. They don't know how to set up, programmatically delivered SEO or PPC for their clients. They don't know how to scale. So all those things that a new business owner doesn't know how to do, a lot of times we're getting asked that in these intro meetings, and they're not. So we know, okay, you're not quite ready,
Yeah.
um, but at some point, probably in the near future, we'll be able to accommodate some of those people too. But for the most part, we're able to find out within a half an hour. We try to pre-qualify them on the website.
Mhm.
It doesn't always work. So yeah, it's really, you have to talk to them and you have to get a sense of where they are in their business journey, whether or not they're a good fit for outsourced services yet.
Yeah, so what does the ideal person look like? Like the peak partner that you would really love to have?
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. So, let's see. If I were going to develop a buyer persona for this, there would probably be like 2 or 3 primary personas.
Mhm.
Um, the first one is like the middle of the bell curve. If I look at all of our agency partners and just plotted them out, the ones that are right in the middle, of the bell curve would be, these are agencies with, you know, 8 to maybe 15 people, that have a sizable number of retainers, that know they need to hire another good PPC analyst, but also know that it's going to cost them, fully loaded, 70 or $80,000 a year to get a junior one,
Mhm.
and don't want to do it. So they need help in production. That's an ideal client, because they know it. They're already doing it. They get it. Um, Another buyer persona is maybe even smaller than that, where you have, um, 1 to 3 people, and they've got 5 or 10 retainers under their belt, and they can't do anymore. They just can't do it. Severe time limitation. There's only so many hours in the day. You
Mhm.
can't develop content, develop creatives, build a website if it comes up, run PPC, keep tabs on SEO and client comms and new lead. You can't do it all. So people like that are smaller, but get it and are doing it, they're perfect.
Okay, so then Harry, what would your ideal partner look like when you're like doing this vetting process?
Yeah, great question. So, uh, best partners are people who already are providing the services and have done it for a while. So they know how to set people up. They know how to sell it. They know, what the expectations are and how to set expectations with the client. So if you can picture, this is not an average, just typical agency partner. would come to us and say, okay, we have, call it 20 retainers and 12 of them have ads running. And we decided not to hire up for a new ads analyst because it's going to cost too much money to bring in the new head. So we want to outsource this. Super common. So they already have the clients, they've already been sold, they're ready to go. That is, we can step in, take over production of those ad accounts and not really miss a beat. Most of the time, what makes us really love it is when we can go in and find quick wins. So an ad account that's been running for a year and go in and say, oh, you know what? We find a lot of success when we do this, this, and this. Let's make those changes and see material improvements to a campaign. Would love that because I mean,
You It's nice.
so
Yeah, it's also nice to look at your results like really quickly and know that
yeah,
you're doing good.
yeah, totally. So the short version, the short answer to your question is somebody who understands how to position, sell, and close an advertising client and and has somebody ready to go. The flip side to that is what's not great is when the agency is really, really fresh, brand new, and they don't quite know how to set expectations with running ads accounts and don't know the ins and outs of setting up the administration, my client center accounts, GA4 integration, tag manager integration, all of those little nuts and bolts really makes a big difference when the agency partner gets it and they've done it and they understand what we're going to have to do in order to execute on the white label partnership. So that's really the short version is experience and setting expectations right with the client, I think makes all the difference in the world.
That makes complete sense because we definitely talked about earlier that you have to educate to a certain extent. And I think educating to a more extent where you don't even understand the field of advertising at all might be a lot more difficult to use the service or involve like data
Yes.
involved
You
without
know what's
knowing
funny
about.
is that just literally an hour ago, I got a message from a long-standing client, somebody, a partner we've been working with for 5 years.
Mhm.
And the question from the account manager was, the client is doing searches and don't see their ad. What do I tell them? And so what we ended up doing was making an 8-minute video saying, look, you have a $30 a day budget. You're at less than 10% impression share. We have 30 defined keywords that are phrase and exact match. Unless they are spot on, they're not going to see their ad in the wild just through a combination of throttling and targeting and everything else. So, that's a situation where if they had understood the ins and outs a little bit better, and that's on us with a longstanding partner to train, make sure that they understand what's going on. But the point is that those are little objections that are really easy to discuss with a client if
Mhm.
you just have the little bit of background to be able to do that. So what makes the best partners are those that really understand those ins and outs.
Yeah, that's really lovely. Especially it's nice that maybe before it even got to you, maybe they understood it enough to be able to explain it
Right.
to client, which is probably the
Right.
idea. But I
But
know that
yeah,
sometimes it
but
gets back to you.
it does. And really that, we're not mad to get that. That's why
Yeah.
we're here. And so we can
Mhm.
hook you up and help you out with that. It's just one of those little examples of like, yeah, we should all know this. It's been a long time.
Yeah, well, it's lovely that you're willing to go through that effort of educating them because I think it's also people in that exact scenario may misunderstand that oh, this isn't working or you're not doing your job or you're not like just
Right.
because they don't understand the levels of how this works, whereas like a lot of people are expecting immediate results as well, which things
Yeah.
take time
Yeah.
and all of that, so having that education aspect I think helps you out on not just them out.
Yes. And of course, Google keeps us on our toes because some campaigns you turn them on and the next day it's like, boom, leads. I wish it were like that every time, but it's not.
I know. You can predict it sometimes, and it changes constantly.
It seems. Look at that.
Well, this is all the time we have for today, but I really appreciate you coming on with me. This was very fun, very informative, and I usually don't get to talk to a lot of people in the ads field as much as I do like the generic marketing agency. So it was really cool to get to learn about this niche as well. So thank you so much for not only probably teaching the audience, but for teaching me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching and or listening. We'd be nothing without you. So please check out some other episodes to learn like I get to do every time. Thank you so much and have a lovely day.